All right, my man.
Nice. How you doing?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. You?
Good, man. What's your Thursday look like?
Man, it's been crazy. It's been crazy today. One of those we're like trying to move, and I don't have to. That's all I have to say. We're trying to move, man. In a global pandemic, but we're making progress. It's like I'm in New York, and property out here, man, is it's insane right now because it's like crazy because everybody's fled Manhattan, right? So everything's like super cheap, but everybody's just like, it's a mess. It's been always a mess, but now it's even more of a mess. But dealing with that, but like I'm in good spirits, man. I'm in good
man. That's good to hear. That's actually what we need, right? We need that good energy, right? It's creatives like us that help push those things forward.
That's right.
So you're in Brooklyn, no?
I'm in Manhattan.
Okay, you're in Manhattan. What part?
Yeah. Upper West Side.
West
Side.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, man. Right. Like a couple blocks from the park, man. It's really nice. We kind of landed on a really nice building with good property manager, and we're staying within the building. So like we're moving, but we're just going upstairs.
Yeah.
That's why it's like part of a mess.
Yeah.
So it's like a little bit of a mess, but we're like lucky, man. It's like, we've been out here for a little bit. I would say like, damn, we're coming on like almost 10 years living out here in New York. We used to be up in the Heights, up in El Barrio, but now we've moved a little closer to the city, or to the center of the city.
Well,
it's good, man. I'm in Chicago. What's that?
Well, actually, that's a good segue to one of my questions, right? And the question was, how different is it being a Latino American in Chicago than NYC?
I mean, I think it's a little. I mean, listen, every place is a little segregated, right? But like, Chicago has a history of really like, I mean, they both have histories of dividing, right? I mean, the big difference is like, I try to get a good taco out here, man, and it's impossible. And so I like, in Chicago, it's like gorditas and sopes, like give it all. In fact, that's what I do every time I go back home and my parents pick me up from the airport, man. That's like the first thing is like, I need to go get like an horchata, and I need to go get a gordita and like a sope on the side. And that's the main thing. But out here, man, it's like a different flavor. They got that like, that New Yorican, very, proud, traditions out here. And it's also like, it's crazy to be like, I'm a huge hip hop head, right? And it's crazy that like the birth of this incredible music, like, is just north of us, right? So I love kind of having been able to experience both, but I feel like the big difference is the food. And also, yeah, go ahead.
No, go, keep going.
No, I was just gonna say it's the big difference is the food. It's like the demographic of which Latinos are actually in the city.
Now you're Mexican, no?
I'm Salvadoran.
Oh, Salvadorian. Okay, my uncle's married to a Salvadorian.
Oh yeah, so you get that pupusas.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, since you're from Chicago and you're a hip hop head, unrelated, Common or Kanye?
I mean, like, that's a complicated question. You can't, like, before Kanye went crazy.
I was a huge Kanye fan at that point.
Of course, man. Kanye is I listen. Common is like, his poetry is I do mad props to Common, but Kanye was like the whole package before he went nuts.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, they're both brilliant.
Both brilliant. But like, Kanye was like Kanye was at the forefront of. He's still creating crazy masterpieces, but they're like, I don't know, man. As soon as he said slavery was a choice, man, I think that was a deal breaker for me.
Yeah. So, since you are pushing this self, how would you call it? How would you title that? Right? Like, it's a one-man show. It's like, it's stand up. You're by yourself, in what it seems like a theater.
Yeah.
And you're rapping, but you're also beatboxing, and things are looped.
Yeah.
And you're telling a story about what here?
I mean, I would say it's the reason it's been doing it for so many years. It's tough to market it, right? Because it's kind of in its own category of like, it is kind of a lot of stand up, and it is like spoken word poetry and like hip hop concert and like pretty traditional solo show where it's just me playing a bunch of characters, right? In that sense, it's like a one man. Also live loop in it, which if anybody's unfamiliar with live looping, it's like making music from scratch, like repeated music. So I'll like take a mic and I'll like record that, and then that keeps going as I pick up other instruments, right? So it's a bunch of different kind of genres, right? Music and comedy and autobiography. But I think that's what makes it special, right? The fact that it's a theatrical experience like you've never seen before.
Yeah.
So
and
it's
it's
everything.
a thing. It's a thing. A lot of people that are not Latino American or Hispanic or Latinx or whatever you want to call this wonderful group of people, right? They would say Spanglish is not a thing. But we know that
Spanglish isn't a thing.
Is a thing, right?
Totally.
So is there Spanglish in this stand-up performance?
Of course, man. You know, like I think you know, a big thing of it was you know, we grew up in a house where my parents lied to us and said, we don't speak English, you need to speak Spanish in this household. And I forever am grateful for that, because they gave me the gift of being able to speak Spanish fluently, right? Like being able to like I can go to El Salvador and speak Spanish, and they don't know that I speak English, right? That's an incredible gift. It also, like, work wise, like, you know, I do voiceover, I do Spanish like commercials. I'm a like el verano de Jeep, right? So I'm very grateful for that, because it's also helped me in my jobs, right? But I'm very grateful that like they kept Spanish in our at the forefront, right? Like, so that we were truly bilingual, and I will forever be grateful to my parents for that. And so putting in that like flavor of like, listen, our household of course spoke English with us, me and my older brother Marvin, who like we're both hip hop heads, and we're just like, of course we're speaking English and Spanish, and with my parents speak, you know, it's actually it becomes its own language, like a third language of the house, which is the mix of like agarrar el bipa porú, you know what I mean? Just like, oh, okay, we're creating our own language here at home. Absolutely. And it's beautiful, man.
You know, so because this is a musical, right? In the movie Selena,
love that movie.
There's a scene where he's like, we need to know about Oprah and Christina, right? So musically,
I love that.
Musically, what was that Spanglish going on in your household?
I mean, I think it's in I mean, although that's a big part of it, right? Like what was playing on TV, the Oprah and the Cristina, and like the you know, that and the what I think for us was a huge thing was the music that my dad was super into, Los Panchos, right? And Pedro Infante.
Yes.
And my mom was like super into like 1960s American rock, right? Because she just kind of she always loved that, and like she also like on the come up. She also loved like R&B, like the 80s kind of, also R&B, like 80s kind of like, you know, soul, and we were just blasting hip hop. So like all of these music kind of at once playing at the same time, fighting for who had the loudest voice. Absolutely. I think was a huge inspiration for how I see and feel music, right? It's an amalgamation of all of those things. You can't for me, you can't really separate them. You can't like hear a hip hop beat. We're also like having like the licks of like you know, Los Angeles Azules, right? Like it has there's so many times where that music communicates. And so it's this, the music of this play is very much influenced by all of that music that used to blast in our house all at the same time.
Related, unrelated, that stuff is amazing to sample, right? Los Angeles Negros were ahead of the time.
Absolutely.
Ahead of the time.
Ahead of the time, bro. All those melodies.
And no one has ever sampled them.
It's true. I mean, there's some cats who are kind of do it, but not like those like big ones. I mean, like they're like sampling, but it's not. It's dude. Some of that like there's oh god. I'm gonna send later. I'll send you some stuff.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I heard this amazing track. I can't remember. I wish I could. But it's like this, like kind of like hip hop or like trap of an old cumbia song, man. And I remember hearing it and being like, "Yo, this is the future."
Yeah, no, actually, I mean, we are the future, right? Like Latino is pop
Yeah,
culture right now.
totally.
Latino is pop
No
culture.
doubt. I mean, it's like you think about Shakira and J Lo and Bad Bunny. These are the international stars. Like these are the people that like are able to break into like global appreciation.
Yeah, I mean, when you have freaking Jason Derulo mixing Bad Bunny and Wisin y Yandel on a YouTube live,
Yeah,
like it's mind blowing.
and also you can't put on a name like Mr. Worldwide and say you're not part of the say you're not a
Absolutely.
man of the world. I mean, Pitbull. I gotta give props to Pitbull. I really used to like I used to rock with Pitbull in his early. I still rock with Pitbull. He's very poppy and very like super
Well,
major
he's made his own
produced, and
lane and is
he's made his own
extremely
thing.
successful with it.
Still, I mean, I still rock with it. But like his early stuff lyrically is also amazing. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I have huge props for Pitbull, man, and him breaking into like international fame.
So now that we know like these things that have inspired this story, what makes you tell this story?
Man, for me it was sitting in I did a for me doing this play was born out of not feeling like I could properly express myself to the full extent, right? Like I just moved to New York and um auditioning for everything, right? Like I was just trying to be an actor. And I had done one play where that was like a hip hop play where I got to rap and I got to like beatbox and dance and be is like we used to be like kids. And I was just like, oh snap, this is gonna be like I'm just gonna do that forever. And this was before Hamilton. This was after In the Heights. So this little time period where like there wasn't really enough.
Yeah.
There wasn't really anything for me to really like sink my teeth into the way that I kind of loved hip hop and theater and the combination of the two. And so after waiting for a long time, it's just like nobody's going to write that piece, nobody's going to create that piece. And that's I think in the vein of a lot of pioneers who didn't have their own, they had to create their own vehicle. Like a huge hero of mine is John Leguizamo, and he's amazing. He crafted his own way. He made his own way. Like nobody, like he did his own show, and then it was seen by like Martin Scorsese, and then here, boom, he's in the movies now. And it's like that's what it takes. It takes sometimes just being like, if nobody's gonna make it for me, I got to carve my own way.
For creatives, they're I believe that creatives are just multi-talented. You're not just good at one thing. There's just a lot of different things that you're good at, right?
No
And
doubt.
as a creative myself, one thing that changed my life years ago was a quote that I read. It said, create the things you wish existed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Like
man.
we often
Totally. It's
we
beautiful.
say like, yo, it would be dope if, or wouldn't it be dope
Yeah.
if, yo, you know what
Yeah.
would be tight? But
Yeah.
right, like that's birth in us, right? To push
Totally.
forward.
Yeah.
That's our gift.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that all it takes is that is I feel so often we wait for permission, right? We're just like, that would be dope, but like that would be dope, but like I can't do that. You know what I mean? It's just like all it takes is being like to either telling yourself or hearing somebody else say it, right? When they're just like, you should just do that. You're just like, I should, right? And I think that's what's beautiful about it is that like you manifest it if you have the impetus, if you have the drive to do it. I think that's beautiful, man. I love that quote.
Absolutely. I permission is something that I feel, because I feel like in our households, right? Like I don't know about how you grew up, but like we would go to, like, my family's old school, right? They
Yeah.
came straight from Puerto Rico, and the attitude was almost like, if you visit someone's home, like, if they offer you water, you say no, right? Like, if they offer you food, like, no, right? Because we come from a place of a lot of lack, and our parents knew
Hmm.
that so and
Hmm.
so didn't have a lot to offer, right? But to be
No doubt.
cordial when somebody comes in as a guest, is like, hey, do you want, and and before you walk in, right? It's absolutely no pidas nada, no digas
No.
nada. You know what I mean? Si te ofrecen algo, tú dices que no, right? And I feel like
Que
the
no.
back of our mind, that subconsciously like trained us, right? Into
Yeah.
certain or molded us.
Hmm.
And that word permission, right? The
Hmm.
being allowed to move forward,
Yeah.
being allowed to say, hey, I'm gonna create this, or I'm gonna go here, or I'm gonna speak this. And I genuinely believe that right now is our moment, right?
For
Like,
sure, man.
right now is our, if any time in history, right now it's the moment, right? When you
Absolutely.
have somebody like Bad Bunny, that's the number one artist in the entire world,
It's amazing.
and taking over the WWE, and you got J Balvin, that's like, the top three artists in the entire world. You're talking about Bad Bunny, Osuna, and J Balvin, right? Like,
Yep.
wow,
It's
right?
amazing.
Last year, the Super Bowl, right? Like, you had Shakira,
Oh,
J-Lo, J Balvin, Bad Bunny, right? And it was just so, on top of the fact that it was in Miami, right? Like, it right
dude.
now, it's our moment to just like raise our flags, right? And just be proud of who we are, and have permission to be who we are, and not just be these Latino Americans.
Totally, man. I think that's it, man. I think it's like finally we're 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 being seen, and I think and being heard. I mean, not, there's still a lot of work to be done, right? When you think about like Hollywood, right? You're just like, still like, okay, where are all the Latino, like, where are, in like the acting categories, like, the directors, like, we're good with the direct. Like, I feel like directors, like, we got what are they? What are their names? The guy that did Pan's Labyrinth, the guy Alfonso Cuarón.
Uh-huh.
Like, but like, there's still not enough, man. And so though one way I'm just like, hell yeah, man, we got like Latinos in Star Wars. That's a great step, right? Like, but also there's work to be done, and I feel like we are experiencing right now a hunger for these stories. I think because like we have gone so long without it, right? I used to watch Star Wars and be like, I'm Luke Skywalker, right? But not anymore. Like, I'm like, that's that white dude, And
What's interesting too, that you say that, right? And this is something that I noticed last year, where you got Lin Manuel, right?
mhm,
That plays an Englishman in Mary
yeah,
Poppins, right? You're talking
yeah,
about a Puerto Rican from Washington Heights playing
yep,
an Englishman in Mary
totally.
Poppins, right? Like, that is freaking phenomenal.
It's amazing. It's amazing, and I think that's what's amazing. It's also like, yeah, allowing for space, but also it's like, and listen, I'm also not of the, it's not like, I think every a seat at the table, and I'm just happy that like a story like this, man, that I created, that I didn't think anybody would ever see, right? It was my first play. I didn't even know I was a writer, right? But a story like that, man, has changed my life. I've done it everywhere. I've done it all over the country, and been doing it since 2014. It's a long time,
Yeah.
and it's amazing that it continues, that people continue to like want to hear these stories, man. And it makes me proud of us as like a like Latinidad, right? Like, of like all of us. And it makes me, really hopeful of the future, like really like of the progress being made, because it's true, man. These cats are like top of the game, and they're the biggest stars, and it's incredibly inspiring.
If if you had a message for our young people in our community, right? Latino,
Mhm.
Hispanic, what is that message?
To like never put yourself down, and to like lift your story up. Your story has value. And you, like, there's a lot of things. I'm, we're from like a, lower middle class. our first house was a trailer home, man. And like my parents worked their butt off for the American dream to finally move us to like a big, like a house not on wheels, right? And that's the American dream, right? But like with that, my roots are like in like, cool, I don't know that I'm ever gonna have like a fancy education. We can't afford a fancy education. I didn't go to school for music. I didn't go to school to write, and I'm still doing like I'm still doing all of those things, and sometimes there's a little bit of imposter syndrome of like, should I be doing them? Like, am I qualified? But like, that's an unhealthy way of having your mind. It's like, no, I can do them proudly. I will do them because knowledge is not like the institution. Like knowledge doesn't just come from these fancy, expensive institutions. Like we drop knowledge. I've learned more like kicking with my parents and playing music than maybe, I don't know. I never went to musical school, so I don't know. But like I learned a bunch, man. And all to say is that like your story and your experiences are worthy of being told.
Absolutely.
No matter where you come from or who you are or like what education you had. I think that's what I would say is that like you're worthy of story to be told.
Now, without giving it away, or maybe this is ambiguous, even asked this question, but where did we sit on the bus?
It's actually like I say, it's a very it's a very underwhelming answer. It's not like an answer that you're just like, yo, what? We sat right, there was a space for us right in the middle. That's the answer I wanted. I wanted it to be like the history books is just like there was a little section and you sat right there. And that's not the answer. So the actual answer, and this took a bunch to like find out, is that like it's kind of based on your skin tone. Like first off, there was like I think I remember the stats, like 9 million immigrants that came in around like the 60s, right? And so of those, there was like 20 or 30% of them were Latinos. So the answer that my third grade teacher gave me at the time, when I asked in the third grade of where Latinos sat on the bus, she was just like, they weren't around. Now that's not completely true, but it's also not entirely not true. Like we were around. It's just not in like huge numbers that it made people write textbooks about.
Yeah.
So it depended on if you could pass. Now I have in my life as like a kind of a lighter skinned Latino been mistaken. You're just like, oh, you're a white guy maybe. Or like, but other times when people are like, yo, they just start speaking Spanish to me, and I'm like, oh, sí, no problema. But it's hard. I have to go through this like, yo, so if I lived then, and it was just up to me to be like, could I pat? Like, where would I actually sit? That's the question that I think is the one that like
where would you
I've been assessing. Yeah, where would you sit? Like, and I think that's the bigger question that like I started asking myself more in this like crazy year that we've had in this country, where like we're seeing like the anti-blackness of America, right? Like we're seeing Black Lives Matter counter protests. You're just like, yo, what? And you assess, I'm assessing my own privilege of like, where would me that potentially might have passed, where would I have sat? Like, where would I have sat? And I think that's an interesting question. But historically, if you were Afro-Latino, you'd sit in the back. I mean, even me, I was just like, I once did a poem. I was performing at the New Yorican Poets Cafe because I used to do a bunch of, I used to go into the New Yorican Poets Cafe and compete at slams, and just to try out these poems, a bunch of these poems, like a comedian, right? Like he does, like goes up there and tries out his jokes to see if which ones land. Yeah. I do the same thing. And after I first did my poem, Where Did We Sit on the Bus? I remember the MC, who's black, after I was done, he was just like, Brian, you would have sat in the back with us. Everybody started cracking up. And I was just like, yeah, I guess so. I mean, like, yes, if you were not white, you'd go all the way to the back. So it's a complicated answer, man, but it's it's one I think worthy to like continue to ask.
Yeah.
Like in a kind of a mindset.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
appreciate, man.
Un abrazo.
Abrazos.
Appreciate you. Mucho éxito. I'm gonna check that out. I'm gonna.
Yeah, man, you should check it out. It's a dope show, man. They did a
How
good
long
job
is it?
with it, man. It's an hour and a half.
Okay.
But it's a good time. They shot it, man, really cool, super dope, man. They shot it with like 4 cameras and a crane. They shot it with a crane. My folks were in the audience. It looks like, dude, it looks like an HBO special. It looks amazing. It looks so good. I was kind of surprised. I mean, I wasn't surprised that it's a great video production company, but it's also like you watch it and you're just like,
it's surprising because it's you.
Yeah, exactly. I've also never seen my show. I've been on stage most of the time, so it's cool to watch the show. It's very fun. It's very funny, and yeah, man. Let me know what you think. I'd be interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
Franco, el matata.